Hi guys, you're welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Tessie and today we'll be making an off-shoulder 6 pieces dress. If you're yet to subscribe to the channel, kindly do that and let's get right into the video. So I have my pattern and I have my shoulder line. As you can see, my chest line, bust point, under bust, waist, hip and the gown length. So what I'll do next is take my nipple to nipple divided by 2 and I'll add half an inch to it. My nipple to nipple divided by 2 is 4 plus half an inch, that's 4.5. I chalked it and made a straight line as you can see. So now you determine how off you want your dress to be. So from the shoulder, I'm just going to be taking 6 inches off. So you determine how off you want it to be. So I chalked 6 inches and I'm just going to connect the line to that 6 inches. So after doing that, what I'll be doing next is placing my darts. So on the underboss, I'll be placing my darts. So on this side of the pattern, I'll be using 1 inch, while on this other side, I'll use 1.5. After placing the darts, I'm just going to connect the line straight down. So what I'll do is connect from the underboss to the boss point using my curve ruler. After connecting on the new neckline, I'm going to be coming in by 1 inch on both sides. So on this side of the pattern, I came in by 1 inch, and on this other side, I came in by 1 inch. So I'm just going to connect them to the bust point line. Now you need to determine how deep you want your neckline to be. For me, I'm just going to be stopping at the chest line. So from this point, I'm just going to connect it all the way down to the chest line. So if you want it deeper, you can go down the more, but the chest line is fine for me. So as you can see, I'm just giving it a sweetheart neck, just trying to blend it in. And then from this point, I'm going to blend it all the way to the armhole. So this is what I have. So I'm just going to use my marker to make the lines visible. So in case you're adding a yoke to yours, this part will serve as the yoke. So I'm just going to label this as my yoke. But that's if you're adding a yoke to it. So what I'll be doing next is placing my measurement and replacing back the dart I took. So on my chest line, I'll be placing my bust measurement divided by 4. So my bust divided by 4 will give me 9.5. You know, we took 2 inches that. I'm going to replace it back here. And I'll be adding extra 2 inches for my sewing allowance. On my underbust, I'm going to be placing my underbust measurement divided by 4. So my underbust divided by 4 will give me 7.5. I'll replace back this 2.5-inch that we took, and I'll be adding extra 2 inches for my sewing allowance. On the waistline, I'll place my waist measurement divided by 4. My waist divided by 4 will give me 7. I'll replace back this 2.5 inches that we took, and I'll be adding extra 2 inches for my sewing allowance. On my hip as well, I'll place my hip measurement divided by 4, which is 11 inches. I'll replace back this 2.5 inches that, and I'll be adding extra 2 inches for my sewing allowance. So after doing that, I'm just going to be connecting my lines together. So from the hip, I'm just going to connect all the way down. So I went ahead to use my marker to make the lines visible. So after doing that, this is what we have. As you can see, I'll go ahead now to cut out my pattern. You can keep the yoke in case you want to add a yoke to yours. So after cutting out my pattern, this is what I have, as you can see. So I'm just going to label my pattern, my bust points, my underbust, my waist, my hip, and my gown length. So in case you want to add a yoke to it, this is the yoke, as you can see. So what we'll do now is to cut out the back. So for the back, I folded my pattern into two. I chalked my zip allowance area, as you can see. After that line, I chalked my shoulder line, my chest line, my waistline, my hip line, and my gown length. Then I came one inches down for my shoulder slope, and I curved my armhole. So on the chest line, I'll be taking my nipple to nipple divided by 2, and I added half an inch to it. So I have 4.5. I'm just going to chalk that 4.5 all the way down to the gown length. After doing that, I'm going to be connecting it into a straight line. So what I'll do next is on the waistline, I'll be placing my dart. So I'll be using half an inch on both sides. So on this side, half an inch, and on this other side, half an inch. Then on the hip line, I'll be coming up by 2 inches. So you come up by 2 inches and connect that half an inch all the way down to that 2 inches line. Then you connect it all the way up. Just watch what I'm doing. So after doing that, I'm going to be placing my measurements. So on the chest line, I'll be placing my bust measurement divided by 4, and I'll be adding extra 2 inches for sewing allowance. On the waistline, I'll place my waist measurement divided by 4, and I'll replace back this dart with hook, and I'll be adding extra 2 inches sewing allowance to it. On the hip line, I'll place my hip measurement divided by 4, and I'll be adding 2 inches sewing allowance. So after doing that, I'm just going to connect my lines together. So after connecting my lines, this is what I have. This part will serve as the yoke. In case you're adding a yoke to it, this will serve as the yoke. So you determine the neck line that you want to use. You can use 1.5 inches, just curve it in this way. That's if you're adding a yoke to it. I'm just trying to explain. Or you can use the other neckline, that's the V neckline. From the neckline, just go straight down to the chest line. I don't know if it makes sense what I'm trying to say, but just look at the illustration. That's if you're adding a yoke to it, but we're not going to be using a yoke for this dress, so I'm just going to be taking that part out. So guys, this is what the back looks like. As you can see, I'm just trying to cut out the pattern. So this is my back pattern. I'm just going to label my lines. As you can see, after doing that, we are good to go with the pattern. So I have the front and the back pattern ready. As you can see, what we'll do next is transfer to the fabric. So I have this fabric at home, funny enough, so I decided to use it for the tutorial. I hope it comes out well. So what I did was fold my fabric into two. What I folded was 15 inches, as you can see. So now you determine how wide you want it to be. So after your pattern, you determine how wide you want your fabric to be. So for me, I'm going to be using 10 inches. You can use 6, 3, 4, 5. It depends on how wide you want it to be, like I said. So what I'll do next is from my waistline, I'm just going to connect all the way down to that 10 inches line I chalked. So I want it to be as wide as 10 inches. So from my waistline, as you can see, I'm just trying to like connect to that 10 inches line I have there. So just watch what I'm doing. I'm connecting to the 10 inches line. Yes. So this is what it looks like, as you can see. So I'm just trying to blend my line. So on the down part, you don't want this part sharp. So what you need to do is come in by either 1 or 2 inches. It depends on how curvy you want it to be. So I came in by 2 inches and I'm just going to curve it in. So I'm just going to blend it in, and this is what the center front looks like, as you can see. So before cutting, you can leave half an inch for joining allowance. So I'm just going to cut out my pattern. So guys, after cutting out my center front, this is what it looks like, as you can see. Now for the side front, what I'll do is on the down part, I'm going to be chalking 10 inches on both sides. So I'll chalk 10 inches on this side of the pattern, and I'll also chalk 10 inches on this other side of the pattern. So now what you're expected to do is on the waistline, you connect all the way down to the inches you chalked down. So for me, I'm just going to connect from the waist all the way down to that 10 inches line. I'll do the same thing for this other side as well. So after doing that, this is what it looks like, as you can see. So I'll go ahead now to cut out my pattern, leaving half an inch allowance for joining. So after cutting out the pattern, on the down part of the pattern, I'll be coming up by 2 inches, just the way we did on the center front. I came in by 2 inches on both sides, as you can see, and I'm just going to be curving it in. After doing that, I'll be taking that part out. So we are done with the center front. So for the back, I don't want that zip line area straight. In case you want it straight, place your fabric this way, then you give it an A shape. But since I want the back line, that's the zip line area, to have that A line effect, I'm just going to place it at the middle, and from my fabric, I'll be chalking 10 inches as well. So I'll go ahead now to chalk my 10 inches on this side of the fabric, and also chalk 10 inches on this other side. So after doing that, I'm going to be connecting from the waist. I'm just going to connect all the way down to that 10 inches line. I'll do the same thing on this other side as well. So I'll come up by 2 inches, just the way we did on the other patterns. So I came up by 2 inches, and I'm just going to curve it in. After doing that, I'll go ahead now to cut out my pattern. So after cutting out my pattern, I'll be cutting for the side back. So I folded my fabric into two, and on the down part of the fabric, I'll be coming in by 10 inch on this side. As you can see, I'll chalk 10 inch on this side, and I'll also chalk 10 inches on this other side. And from my waist, I'm just going to connect it all the way down to that 10 inches line. So after doing that, I'll be coming up by 2 inches on both sides. Then I'll go ahead now to curve it in. So we are done with the side back. I'll go ahead now to cut out my pattern. Before I forget, please make sure to cut your lining as well. You're cutting lining for all the patterns. So guys, after doing that, I want the dress padded. So I've gone ahead now to pad the front part of my bustier. As you can see, my paper stick got to the waistline. So I have a detailed tutorial on how to perfectly pad a bustier. You should watch that video. I'll drop the link on the description box. So what I'll do next is join my center front and the sides together. So I'm just going to take one of the side, I'll place it on the center front, and I'll be stitching half an inch all the way down to the gown length. And I'll do the same thing for this side as well. I'm going to place it and run a stitch all the way down to the gown length. So guys, for the back, I had to rearrange my pattern. I wanted this pink area to be the one at the zip allowance area. So I placed my pattern this way. So this will be the one at the zip allowance area. Why the one with the yellow will be at the side. So what I'll do next is join my fabric and stitch half an inch all the way down. I'll do the same thing for the other part as well. So after joining the front pattern together, this is what it looks like. I've gone ahead to cut and join my lining as well. So I'm just going to place it on the front, and I'll be running a stitch all the way down. So after doing that, this is what it looks like, as you can see. So now for the back, I've gone ahead to join my back pattern with the lining together. So this is what the back looks like with the lining joined together. So now I'll be placing my front and my back together. So as you can see, I'm just going to place the front on the back, and I'm going to be pinning it down to hold my fabric in place. After doing that, I'll go ahead now to shape my dress. So guys, after shaping, I've added my zip at the back part of the dress. As you can see, this is what we have. So what I'll be doing next is I'll be adding the straps to it. So for the straps, I cut out 4 pieces of fabric. As you can see, I have 4 pieces of black crepe fabric. So I'm just going to fold it and stitch and turn it out. So guys, after doing that, this is what I have. So I'm just going to place it here and run a stitch. So note, Normally you're supposed to place it on your front pattern before adding your line into it so that the stitches won't show outside. But the reason why I'm just going to place it and stitch here is because I might end up removing the straps and adding a sleeve to it. I don't know yet, so that's why I'm stitching it outside. I hope you understand. So I'm just going to place one at the back as well. I will stitch and you have something like this. So you do the same thing for this part as well. I'll place it somewhere here and stitch, and I'll place one at the back as well and stitch. I'll show you guys the end result. So guys, this is the final result of the dress, as you can see, and this is the back view. I wish I had different Ankara to pair them with, but regardless, the dress is lovely. Hope my tutorial was helpful, and please do not forget to subscribe to the channel, like the video, drop a comment, follow me on Instagram at So with Tess. I will see you guys in the next class. For now, I'll say bye.